House will come back to order. The House will come back to order. Mr. Clerk, would you ring the bell, please? Clerk will read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions. The clerk will read.
Commending Roy Mitchell, Floyd County's 2015 Teacher of the Year. Commending Mr. Gary Jones, Rome City School Teacher of the Year for 2016. Recognizing Loving Hearts, Helping Hands 2015 Heart of the Community Board of Governors recipient, Dr. Paul Ferguson. Recognizing and commending Mr. John Preston on his outstanding public service, and for other purposes. That completes the reading of the privileged resolution.
Is there objection to the adoption of the privileged resolutions? Chair hears none. The resolutions are adopted. All right, we're back to taking up motions and measures off the rules calendar. The chair recognizes the chairman of the House Retirement Committee, Chairman Battles, for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask the House agree to a Senate substitute as amended by the House for House Bill 266.
Chairman Battles has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 266 as amended by this House. The clerk will read the captions.
House Bill number 266 by Representative Battles, the 15th be titled an act to amend Code Section 47-1-12 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to investment and reinvestment of assets of local retirement systems. There's also amendment, Battle Amendment AM 430008.
Chair recognizes Chairman Battles to explain the Senate substitute and the House amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 266 passed from here, went over to the Senate. There was one amendment made there that had to do with the municipal association's retirement plan, just providing some opportunity for those who are in the plan in case of a death, that there was some death benefits to their heirs. That was the only substitute that was a part of that bill on the Senate side. The amendment that we're offering here is what we passed out of this body, which was House Bill 256, that was passed and made it to the rules calendar over on the Senate, but yet did not get on for a vote. This came from Chairman Maxwell. It has to do with the Firefighters Association, and we have passed this without any objection a few days ago. Just asking that this be added to 266 so that we can move this forward. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions. If not, ask that you favorably consider it.
I have no questions.
Thank you.
On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 266 as amended by this House, all those in favor of the motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 168, the nays are 0. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute, House Bill 266, as amended by this House. All right, going back to the rules calendar from Tuesday, March 31, Senate Bill 89 was postponed to the next legislative day, subject to the call of the chair. The chair now calls Senate Bill 89. The clerk will read the caption.
Senate Bill 89 of Senator Albers of the 56th to be entitled an Act to amend Article 19 of Chapter 2, Title 20, the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to textbooks for elementary and secondary education. This bill had been referred to the Committee on Education. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by substitute.
Chair recognizes Representative Brockway to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I bring you Senate Bill 89. The bill does two things. It came over from the Senate with section part 2, you'll see, of the bill, and essentially what that does is encourages more use of technology and provides an easier path for that to happen in classrooms. As many of you know, that in education, technology is becoming extremely important. So this bill changes the definition of textbooks to include instructional materials and content. That makes it easier for technology to be applied to the classroom. It kind of sets a goal that there will be wide usage of technology in the classroom by the year 2020. And so that's essentially what that section of the bill does. When it came over to the House, we added Part 1, and that is a bill that I've been working on in the form of House Bill 414, and that is a student data privacy protection bill. Last year, the Speaker appointed me to a study committee chaired by Chairman Carl Rogers and Chairman Brooks Coleman, and we took a look at the broad topic of the federal role in education. One of the issues that came up was we are collecting in the classroom, we are collecting more and more data on students, educational-related data. And there's a concern, I think a legitimate concern among parents, that we love to collect data, and it's very easy to collect it, and we start collecting data that's not necessary for classroom instruction. So this bill takes a lot of what we're doing currently in Department of Education policy and puts that into law. And, excuse me, I think the important reason why we want this in law is that we want to send a signal, I believe, to parents all across Georgia that we value protecting their students' data, that we're not going to collect data that's not necessary for the classroom. We're going to keep it secure. We're not going to share it with other entities that there's no need for it to be shared with, and it's going to be used for educational purposes. So we worked very hard with a lot of the people in the tech sector, with the Department of Education, and other stakeholders and parents, and they are all good with this part of the bill. As I said, it pretty much puts in code a lot of the things that the Department of Education is doing related to this, because we're doing a good job. We're collecting the stuff we need and we're using it as we need to. So it really puts a lot of that protection in place, and that's the two parts of the bill, and I'll be happy to answer any questions on that, Mr. Speaker.
You have a question if you care to yield.
Yes, sir, I'll yield.
Chair recognizes Representative Dudgeon to your right for a question.
Does my friend in the yellow yield?
I do. Yes, sir.
Is it not true that I spent a good part of last session working on a different data privacy bill that came over from the Senate?
Yes, sir, you did.
Is it not also further true that I've worked with you on this bill, and this bill really does the job without infringing on the great stuff that happens in technology in the classroom, and it's supported by the technology industry?
I agree with you completely, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No further questions.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I would ask you your favorable consideration of this bill. Thank you.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 89 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of Senate Bill 89. The ayes are 165, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. The chair recognizes Chairman Coleman for an announcement, for a motion. I'm so used to recognizing you for an announcement. You've had 39 so far this session. Chair recognizes Chairman Coleman for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll make an announcement after if you want me to. I'd like to ask the House to agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 48.
Chairman Coleman has moved that this House agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 48. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 48 by Representative Coleman of the 97th, being entitled an act to amend Code Section 40-2-85.3, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to special license plates, honoring family members of service members killed in action.
Chair recognizes Chairman Coleman to explain the Senate amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House, what this simply is, this is the annual tag bill that I had the pleasure of carrying. You remember earlier we had it doing tags for the ambulance drivers and others. We had the famous one from Representative Yates that was recognizing the disabled veterans. We had Representative Maxwell's famous motorcycle one, and we had the one for the surviving spouse for those killed in action. What the Senate did, they added one. They asked us to please add a tag from their area that would take care of Georgia State Defense Force. So, Mr. Speaker, I ask that everyone please give favorable approval to the House Bill 48 and agree to the Senate amendment.
You have a question if you care to yield.
I'll yield for one.
Chair recognizes Representative Gravely to your right for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir, I do.
Does this bill also still include a Purple Heart type designation for law enforcement personnel injured in the line of duty?
Yes, sir, your bill. That's the very first part.
Thank you, Mr.
sir.
Chairman.
Yes, sir. Mr. Speaker, I yield the will.
On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 48, all those in favor of the motion will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 166, the nays are 0. This House has agreed to the Senate amendment to House Bill 48. Chair recognizes Representative Dudgeon for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 502.
Representative Dudgeon moves that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 502. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 502 by Representative Dudgeon of the 25th to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 20, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to elementary and secondary education, so as to update and clarify provisions in law.
Chair recognizes Representative Dudgeon to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, the Senate did not do any major surgery on the Title 20 bill. We changed the names of school systems. Status quo becomes Title 20, no waivers. IE squared, which has always been confusing, is strategic systems. They added 2 sections, one urging for a Freedom Week being recognized in the schools, and another one to teach founding documents and test that. The keynote from those Senate sections is they're not requirements, they're just simply urging language. The Senate also took out 2 of our sections, which weren't overly important, and we just negotiated that away. So I'd ask for the ask for the House's favorable consideration. Be glad to answer any questions.
You have no questions.
I yield the will. Thank you.
On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 502, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 173, the nays are 0. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 502. Chair recognizes Chairman Knight for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to make a motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 470.
Chairman Knight has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 470. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 470 by Representative Knight of the 130th be titled an act to amend Article 6 of Chapter 4, Title 26 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to pharmacy so as to change certain provisions relating to the Pharmacy Audit Bill of Rights.
Chair recognizes Chairman Knight to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As y'all know, this is the PBM, the bill dealing with our independent pharmacists. There was one change that I had agreed to on the House side. It was simply making sure that the end-stage renal disease facilities, our dialysis clinics, were not caught up in this. They do prescribe a little medicine that is in conjunction with dialysis, and this was just clarifying language to make sure that they were not included in this. That is the only change on the Senate side, and I would appreciate your favorable consideration. Thank you.
On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 470, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 173, the nays are 0. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 470. Chair recognizes the chair of the House Judiciary Non-Civil Committee, Chairman Golick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 190.
Chairman Golick has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 190. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 190 by Representative Golick of the 40th to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 33 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to insurance generally, so as to provide insurance requirements for transportation network companies and their drivers.
Chair recognizes Chairman Golick to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, House Bill 190, also conventionally known as the Uber Insurance Bill, the version that passed out of the Senate represents an agreement and a compromise between the transportation network companies, companies like Uber, Lyft, et cetera, as well as the insurance companies. The main aspect of the bill, the highlight of the bill as far as I'm concerned, is the fact that the version that came over maintains the provision that these companies will maintain primary insurance from the time that the driver is out through period 1 and the app is on through the time that the passenger exits the vehicle. That is consistent with the House position. I think it's the most important aspect of the bill. We did raise up the property limits in order to make sure that they were realistic in today's day and age with how much vehicles cost. I commend the bill to you, and I think it represents a good compromise between interested parties, as well as the House and the Senate. And I commend Senator Bethel for his working with us on the agreement. Be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
You have no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I ask for your favorable consideration.
On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 190, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 153. The nays are 14. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 190. Chair recognizes the Chairman of the Agriculture and Consumer Affairs Committee for a motion. Chairman McCall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 475.
Chairman McCall has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 475. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 475 by Representative McCall of the 33rd, being entitled an act to amend Title 27 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to game and fish, so as to revise provisions relating to the hunting of feral hogs.
Did they just not understand it? Did they just not understand it over there? Chair recognizes Chairman McCall to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The language is just like we sent them, except the ag community and DNR wanted some transport restrictions so folks can't catch these things and move them to other parts of the state and turn them loose in something that's other than a fenced-in area to try to cut down on the spread of these pests that we have running loose in the state. I appreciate you voting to agree.
I thought maybe they wanted to apply the scientific name for a feral hog.
Are you talking about an aggravating nuisance? Is that and a white-tailed deer?
Gentleman had yielded the well. On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 475, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 170, the nays are 0. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 475. Chair recognizes Chairman Roberts for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we agree to the Senate amendment to House Resolution 36.
Chairman Roberts has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 36. The clerk will read the caption.
House Resolution 36 by Representative Benetton of the 31st, honoring the life and memory of Staff Sergeant Sean J. Whitehead and dedicating a bridge in his honor.
Chair recognizes Chairman Roberts to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the road naming bill that we passed out of the House over to the Senate. They put their namings on it and send it back to us. So I ask that your favorable consideration, and I hope this is the last time that I yield this well tonight.
We do too. On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 36, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 167, the nays are 0. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 36. All right, the Rules Committee met at 4 p.m. and they have published a supplemental rules calendar. We're going to take up a measure on that calendar at this time. The clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 76.
Senate Bill 76 by Senator Jackson of the 24th to be titled an act to amend Code Section 40-6-20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to obedience to traffic control devices, so as to provide for the safe operation of a motorcycle or lightweight motor vehicle through an inoperative traffic control signal. This bill has been referred to the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes the chair of the Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee, Chairman Alan Powell, to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen of the House. I bring to you this afternoon Senate Bill 76. We dealt with this bill in a different form from a House member, Chairman Yates, earlier in the session. It had some of the same subject matter. This deals with the motorcycles in the state. We've looked at a problem for years and really didn't know how to correct the problem. Motorcycles, in a lot of cases, they'll come up to red lights. The red lights will have the bumper strips that activate the red lights, and the weight and the length of the motorcycles don't activate them, and these motorcycles are sort of stuck there. In a lot of cases, my attitude and my solution has always been take a right on red and do a U-turn. But then what we've wound up over the last several years was that as you go down these interstate ramps and such where there's red lights, well, they don't have anywhere to go. And finally, we decided we would deal with this issue a little bit more forthright through the committee. Representative Jaspers and some of the committee members did a great job in this. But if you'll look on the second page, This allows a motorcycle to proceed cautiously through a red light that doesn't recognize his or her vehicle if there's no other vehicle within 500 feet. But we also put in language because of our concern of liability, and it reaffirms that the rider does not have the right of way and has the burden of proof that he or she has been acting in accordance to the laws that we have written. That takes care of that issue. There was a secondary part of that that deals with the motorcycles. There was some antiquated language about the height of the motorcycle bars. Hadn't been needed in 40 years, so we're striking and cleaning the law on that. And then we, as is the mode of operation as we get into these last days, we take some other legislation that needs a little goodwill and a little bit of help. We've got in a lot of our cities and municipalities like Clark County, Athens, and some of the places, there's been a new method of creating safety, pedestrian safety devices. These rectangular rapid flash beacons, LED flash beacon systems, shutter flash, LED beacons, and what we're doing was recognizing those as authorized methods of telling traffic to stop if pedestrians are crossing roads. These are automatically activated. And we also went into that and said, because to basically deal with the pranksters, that it refers back to the authorization, but it also says that it makes it illegal for someone to activate these beacons if they're not crossing the road. That, Mr. Speaker, is the gist of this bill. It's not quite the Christmas tree we'd like to see it, but it's Christmas tree enough to cure some of the problems in the state. And I would ask this body to support this piece of legislation. Be glad to answer any questions.
You have a number of questions if you care to yield.
Be more than glad to.
Chair recognizes Chairman Parsons to your left for a question.
Thank you, Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I actually would have probably several questions, but you had, in your presentation, you had spoken of removing some antiquated language, I think, later in the bill. Like
handlebar.
And I'm reading that, and it has to do with the height of the handlebar and also the sissy bar. Could you explain why we'd be taking out the part about the handlebar? That's one of those high, one of the high handlebar.
We call that the Easy Rider language of
exactly.
the 1960s, when there was a lot of prejudice towards custom bikes and the such. Hasn't been no one that we know of, except maybe one jurisdiction, has used that language for years. And the motorcycling community, it's basically, you go across the 50 states, then that language does not exist anywhere else.
Well, the gentleman further yield?
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that it doesn't really have anything to do with the prejudice against that type of motorcycle, but in fact, the motorcycle can't be handled correctly if the handlebars are that high? You lose the ability to handle the motorcycle if the bars are up that high. Is that not true?
There are, but the rack system, the extended forks and all, they do have those, and they're slanted back.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Gravely to your right for a question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate your work on this bill. Wasn't it, in testimony, a lot of these riders, they're concerned with their own life, aren't they?
They certainly are. If you ride a bike, you'd better be concerned with your own life, because nobody else is in a lot of cases.
Does the gentleman further yield?
Yes, sir.
The problem that we're talking about with the red light not changing or the bike not being heavy enough to engage the red light, this is happening at 10:30, 11, 12, maybe 1 in the morning when the roads are less traffic. Matter of fact, probably no one's on the roads at that time, and these bikes are being held up at these traffic lights because they won't turn because the bike doesn't signal the light. Correct? Is that not true?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you further yield?
Be glad to, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Jaspers to your right for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I certainly will.
To my friend who I've learned a great deal in the last couple of years from. But this is not true during the committee meetings that we had. There was testimony that the passage of this part of the bill concerning motorcycles turning left on red would increase motorcycle insurance rates in our state.
That was some of the testimony, yes it was.
And so that further yield, so that voting for this would be a vote to increase motorcycle insurance rates in our state.
You know, we had talked about this because we really don't know, because they're sort of darned if they do and they're darned if they don't. You know, we get these motorcycles as a lot of the testimony and things we knew. There was no real good answer to this, so we have, hopefully by putting the language in there about burden of proof, hopefully that we put the best language out there possible.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Do you yield for one more question?
Yes, sir. Be glad to, Mr. Speaker.
As of right now, that's all the lights you have on. Chair recognizes Representative Tom Taylor to your right for a question.
Well, gentlemen, yield.
I certainly will.
Got one question. As we have the incarnation of Evel Knievel on the floor today, would you consider him a subject matter expert on this and ask him to rise and speak to the bill?
Given the dress, I think we didn't go far enough on House Bill 1.
No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And ladies and gentlemen of the House, and I would ask for your favorable consideration to Senate Bill 76.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 76 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of Senate Bill 76, the ayes are 162, the nays are 5. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 164.
Senate Bill 164 by Senator Jones, the 10th, to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 2, Title 20, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to elementary and secondary education, so as to provide for positive behavioral interventions and supports and responses to intervention initiatives. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Education, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Chairman Nix to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to bring you Senate Bill 164. Several years ago, I had looked into what we could do to try to help our teachers in the classroom with better discipline and create a better learning climate there. And I came across this term and this process called PBIS, Positive Behavior Interventions and Support. This bill is simply a bill that urges boards of education to implement this system in schools that have a school climate rating of a 1 or 2 star, the lower ratings. I think this is a good bill. Like I said, it does not mandate anything. But it asks those boards to look into using a proven method to try to improve their school climate. Mr. Speaker, I'll be glad to take questions. If there are none, I'll yield the well and ask for your favorable support.
You have no questions.
Thank you. I ask for your favorable support for Senate Bill 164.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 164 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of Senate Bill 164, the ayes are 157, the nays are 6. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. The chair recognizes Representative Green for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 395.
Vice Chairman Green has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 395. The clerk will read the caption.
House Resolution 395 by Representative Green and the 151st, creating the Joint Georgia-Alabama Study Committee.
Chair recognizes Representative Green to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, this is the House resolution that we passed several weeks ago. To make it more uniform with the state of Alabama, the Senate moved that the number of individuals that are appointed to the committees would be 5 from the House and 5 from the Senate, and the Senate members would be appointed by the Lieutenant Governor, and that's all it did. If there are no questions, Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
You have no questions. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 395, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 171, the nays are 0. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute, House Resolution 395. What purpose does Representative Strickland rise?
To make a motion.
State your motion.
I move we recommit House Bill 160 to rules, Senate Bill 160 to rules.
Representative Strickland has moved that Senate Bill 160 be recommitted to the Committee on Rules. Is there objection, or clerk will read the caption.
Yeah.
I want to give you an opportunity to withdraw that motion for just a moment, and we'll come back to you here in just a few minutes.
Okay.
You wish to withdraw the
I wish
motion?
to withdraw the motion.
You ask unanimous consent to withdraw the motion. Any objection? Hearing none, the motion's withdrawn. Chair recognizes Representative Strickland for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. See if we can get this one right. Move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 322.
Representative Strickland has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 322. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 322 by Representative Strickland, 111th, to be entitled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 7 of Chapter 14 of Title 44 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating to foreclosure, so as to provide for the recording of deeds under power within a certain time after a foreclosure sale.
Chair recognizes Representative Strickland to explain his motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House, House Bill 322 was the bill that added the penalty for the late filing a deed under power after a foreclosure sale. The Senate left Section 9, that's old House Bill 322, the same. We actually have new sections added to it. Section 1 and Sections 3 through 7 are all House Bill 267, a bill that was carried by Representative Kelly. And that bill simply looked to clarify who signed security deeds. Didn't change existing law, just clarify for underwriters who actually signs these deeds based on a confusion by a Supreme Court case in 2013. And also a new section, Section 2. And Section 2 deals with unclaimed bonds, federal bonds, and it allows those bonds to come back to the state of Georgia and go through our process of having the bonds claimed, not claimed within 3 years, that should go back to the general fund. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
You have no questions.
Ask for your favorable consideration.
On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 322, all those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 170, the nays are 0. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute, House Bill 322. Chair recognizes Representative Cantrell for a motion.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I move that we agree to the Senate substitute for House Bill 209.
Representative Cantrell has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 209. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 209 by Representative Cantrell, the 22nd, to be entitled an act to amend Article 33 of Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated relating to the Georgia Special Needs Scholarship Act.
Chair recognizes Representative Cantrell to explain the Senate substitute.
Colleagues, this is a bill that I brought to you a few weeks ago, HB 209. It simply modifies the parental notification portion of the Special Needs Scholarship Act. The Senate removed the part of the language that required the schools to continue to notify parents at every IEP meeting. So now the bill simply states that parents must be notified if they have a qualifying child at the first IEP meeting, and then the rest of the act stayed the same. So that's all there was that they changed. If there are no questions, I'll yield the well, Mr. Speaker.
There are no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 209, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 165, the nays are 4, and this House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 209. No. Chair recognizes Representative Shaw for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 461.
Representative Shaw has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 461. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 461 by Representative Shaw, the 176, to be entitled an act to amend Article 14 of Chapter 1 of Title 10 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated, relating to secondary metal recyclers.
Chair recognizes Representative Shaw to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. The metal theft bill that I've worked on, the Senate actually, I recommended a couple of changes that were recommended late that would help law enforcement simply by making sure that they can use this database for other crimes if these investigations, if it can help law enforcement. Also, just clarified that they have to submit the data, the transactional data that's part of the database, have to do that electronically. But anyway, it was just changes that we recommended over there. Now it's back, so I ask for your favorable consideration so we could wrap this up. There's been a lot of hard work on this bill, and I'm happy to see it come to an end. So I ask for your favorable consideration. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to yield.
You have a question if you care to yield.
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes the Minority Leader of the House, Leader Abrams, to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
Certainly.
Can you clarify the changes that allow law enforcement to have access to information, describing what information will now be permitted that wouldn't have been permitted previously?
Well, when we made some changes earlier this year, what we did was we made it that law enforcement could only use the database for metal theft investigations or crimes. So we found out later that there are situations in some other states, and this was recommended by the third party that manages the database that has a lot of experience. They actually had a situation in Mississippi where there was a catalytic converter dealer who was murdered, and they were able to look at that database and go back and get the tag number of the guy that came through there and sold them some catalytic converters, and actually for some reason, whatever happened, he ended up murdering the dealer, and they were able to go out and find that guy within 8 hours because they could access that database. So we want to just make sure that they could do that the same way in Georgia if a situation like that occurred.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I'll yield the well and just ask for your favorable consideration.
On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 461, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 121, the nays are 51. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 461. What purpose does Representative Strickland rise?
To make a motion.
State your motion.
Move that the House recommit Senate Bill 160 to the Rules Committee.
Gentleman has moved that this House recommit Senate Bill 160 to the Committee on Rules. The clerk will read the caption.
Senate Bill 160 by Senator Williams, the 27th, to be entitled an act to amend Article 2, Chapter 3, Title 3 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating to prohibited acts regarding alcoholic beverages.
On the gentleman's motion that Senate Bill 160 be recommitted to the Rules Committee, is there objection? The chair hears none, and it is so ordered. Chair recognizes Representative Shaw for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute for House Bill 185.
Representative Shaw has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 185. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 185 by Representative Shaw, the 176, to be entitled an act to amend Title 33 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating to insurance, so as to extensively revise the standard valuation law.
Chair recognizes Representative Shaw to explain his motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 185 is the bill we passed that is a Department of Insurance bill that deals with the way, it's a model bill from the National Association of Insurance Commissioners that deals with the way life insurance companies deal with their reserves or the amount of capital that they set aside to pay claims. The Senate added a bill, one of their bills, dealing with Mutual Insurance Holding Company Act. This is also a bill that the Department of Insurance has worked very closely with these folks on. And basically what it does the same thing that 32 other states are already doing and allowing these mutual companies to have their holding companies. Basically, it's an alternative to demutualization for these carriers. It allows them to have enhanced ability to raise capital without, like I said, having to go through demutualization. It's it's been approved by the commissioner, worked on a lot, and 32 other states are doing this. So I'll be glad to answer any questions. Otherwise, I'd ask for your favorable consideration.
You have a couple of questions if you care to yield.
I'll take a couple, yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Dudgeon to your right for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
This language added by the Senate from their Bill 204, it looks like that bill did not pass committee. Are we sure this language is pretty extensive, has been vetted properly?
Yeah, I've checked with the Department of Insurance, and they said, yes, they've worked very closely with them. What they've been able to do, and I think it just took them a while to get it the way they wanted, because they've looked at what other states are doing and sort of picked what they thought would work best in Georgia. So I think it just took them a little longer than they expected to try to get it perfected.
Thank you.
Do you yield for one more question?
I will take one more, yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Bentley to your left for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Representative, the House bill that was introduced previously did not have an impact on the funeral industry. Does this bill still do not have an impact on the funeral industry?
I would not think in any way that I could ever imagine that it would have an effect on that industry.
Okay, just making sure. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll yield the will, Mr. Speaker, and ask for your favorable consideration.
On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 185, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 140, the nays are 31, and this House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 185. Chair recognizes Representative Tanner for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 71.
Representative Tanner has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 71. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 71 by Representative Tanner of the 9th. Be entitled an act to amend Chapter 17 and Title 17 and Chapter 9 and Title 42 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating to the Crime Victims' Bill of Rights and pardons and paroles.
Chair recognizes Representative Tanner to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is the pardon and parole transparency bill that we passed overwhelmingly out of this House. The Senate made some changes to the bill. I'll cover those for you and then ask that you vote to agree. In the previous version that passed this House, we basically said that all crimes that an individual was going to be considered to be pardoned for would have to notify the prosecutor and the victim. In the Senate change, they still have to notify the victim in all cases, but in limited cases for the prosecutor, and there's a list of those cases starting on lines 51. It's extensive, and it covers all the major serious crimes in Georgia law. Also, one major change that I know gave some people some concern in the chamber here was that the votes will no longer be recorded by the individual members, either on pardons or commutations. They'll still have to give a reason for the vote as a board, but the individual board members' votes will not be recorded. And then probably the largest change is about declassification of material. In the bill that passed the House, once a final decision was made, it was automatically declassified. In this bill, the board still has the ability to classify the material, keep it a state secret, but they have to weigh the public benefit and law enforcement purpose for declassifying the material. This is a major step in the right direction. It's not necessarily as far as I'd like to go, but we're going to continue to monitor the board and go from there. And I ask your favorable consideration to agree with House Bill 71.
You have no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the will.
On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 71, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the gentleman's motion. The ayes are 170, the nays are 3. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 71. Yeah, I had you lined up. Let's. Yeah. Or you want to come after dinner? That's all I was planning on doing. Oh, I thought it was 5:30. See if they can get him here by 6. No, I mean, I prefer to do it. Chair recognizes Representative Fleming for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 524.
Representative Fleming has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 524. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 524 by Representative Fleming of the 121st. Bill being enacted to amend Code Section 10-1-490 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the registration of businesses using trade names.
Chair recognizes Representative Fleming to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, House Bill 524 is the trade name bill that we sent across to them. This is the bill that deals with our clerks of court in your county courthouses and their attempt to put online all the records in the courthouse for the citizens to be able to go online and view them there rather than having to travel around the state. That passed almost unanimously, I think, out of this House. All the Senate did to it is that they took off some of the fees that were on the House bill. And what I mean by that is this computer system that our clerks have used in order to put all these records online for our citizens to view more easily costs something to maintain. And the way through the last 2 decades they have paid for this system is to charge a fee when you file something in the courthouse. Involved in this were re-registration fees for trade names and whatnot. They took those off. The Clerk's Authority is fine with that. There's enough money in the system to pay for this, so I would ask for your favorable consideration and agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 524. Mr. Speaker, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
You have a few questions if you care to yield.
I'd be happy to.
Chair recognizes Chairman Chokas to your left for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Please correct something, and I may not have understood. Is this has anything to do with the posting of legal notices out of newspapers or anything like that, and going online?
No, Mr. Chairman, it does not. This has nothing to do with the posting of legal notices in a newspaper or online. Now, when you go file your trade name, you may have to actually buy an ad in the paper for it. I'm not positive about that, but generally speaking, with all those ads, this is not going to affect that.
Thank you. Sorry for the...
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir, Mr. Speaker, I'd be happy to.
Chair recognizes Representative Kirby to your left for a question.
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir, Representative Kirby.
Representative, I'm a little confused. The board shows you're excused and not here.
Well, I think I'm going to ask the clerk right now to take my E going because I'm back.
Thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out to me.
Do you further yield?
I'd be happy to take one more, Mr. Chairman.
Chair recognizes Representative Bruce to your right for a question.
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir, Representative.
Does this include any criminal records as well? Concerned about mugshots, obviously.
Representative, it does not. What a trade name is, if you're going to do business as Rogers Snack Shop, you have to register your name with the courthouse so you can get a checking account, but it has nothing to do with criminal records whatsoever.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I think that fully explains it. Like I said, we've passed this before overwhelmingly, and the Senate did very little to change the bill. I'd ask for your favorable consideration of 524, and I'll yield the well.
On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 524, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 167, The nays are 3. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 524. Three 374. Chair recognizes Chairman Nix for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 374.
Chairman Nix has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 374. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 374 by Representative Nix, the 69th be titled an act to amend Part 5 of Article 10 of Chapter 5 of Title 48. The official code of Georgia annotated relating to an exemption from ad valorem taxation for certain farm equipment.
Chair recognizes Chairman Nix to explain the Senate substitute.
Members of the House, we sent this bill over. It was a one-word change where we added the word forestry to equipment that's exempt from ad valorem taxation. The Senate added another provision, which I think is good. There's the same situation with equipment that is acquired through a lease purchase agreement for farmers. The leasing company is still being charged ad valorem tax as if that equipment were in its inventory. This bill will take that away and will eliminate the ad valorem tax on that lease purchase equipment so that the farmers will not be responsible for that. And Mr. Speaker, I'll be glad to answer any questions. If no questions, I'd ask you to agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 374.
You have no questions.
I yield the well.
On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 374, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 171, the nays are 3. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 374. All right, we're going to, I understand that there is some food prepared downstairs in, I'm sorry, rooms 216 and 230. So you're all invited down there. Chairman McCall has been very instrumental in bringing that together, and we appreciate that. We're going to stand in recess for dinner. Let's come back at 7 p.m. 7 p.m.